In the spirit of reconciliation, the new Blurt acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
I can't take it anymore!
Good afternoon, good evening, good day, and good morning, Blurtsters, wherever you are around the world. You are listening to the Blurt.
Good evening. You are listening to the new Blurt. You are with Wency, Wency and the Kegster. And tonight we also have a special guest. We have Mark Kelly from the Vote Tony Out campaign, which was a few years ago when we were able to vote Tony out at the last election. Unfortunately, we couldn't vote too many of the other Liberal holders out at the time. But maybe this election in 2022 may change, and Mark can explain to us how we can make it happen and what needs to happen to make it happen, as it were. So with that, Mark will be in our first segment, which will probably be in about 5 or 6 minutes. And then after that, we will have Beasts of Blurtdom. And that is a segment whereby we talk about animals. There could be animals from years ago. There could be mythical animals. There could be animals that have done really interesting things. And Wency and I basically just, find some information about them, have a bit of a yabber. And there's always some interesting points to be taken from. Good evening, as I normally say, Wency.
Where's my roar of applause?
I know. I didn't have enough time to. Hold on, it's going to be better late than never. Better late than never. There
we should have practiced that earlier. Hey, Kickster. How are things? So you look a bit cold there today.
Well, it's funny. I've actually been outside probably the last hour or so, just enjoying, because out the back is where our sun is. Yeah, well, that's true. But I've been able to do this inside my house for quite a while and outside my house for quite a while. It's just that the sun hits our backyard and the sun doesn't hit our front yard, which is really quite frustrating because that's where I do all my work when I work during the week. It's all in the front. So I'm sitting here with a beanie and gloves and, I've got an engine in my socks trying to keep my legs warm. It's... you're just freezing up there in your t-shirt and your 24 degrees.
Oh, at least in here at the moment. I think I need aircon soon.
Yeah, just rub it in. That's fantastic. Thanks very much for that.
Yeah.
So we were alluding to Dan Illick before, and I noticed today that I know when he came on our show a few weeks ago and he was talking about the billboards before it actually took off, he told us about which ones he was going to put up. And one of them, I think, was something along the lines of, sorry about bullshitting the people, et cetera, our government says sorry or something. I can't remember exactly. I'm paraphrasing, but it says yours Australian people or something along those lines. But anyway, that line, bullshitting, and it's not an actual I believe it's like an asterisk. That line, that was fine in Times Square in New York. That was okay. Apparently Glasgow, no.
Really?
Yeah.
Don't the Scots just swear every second word whenever they talk?
I've been to Scotland quite a few times, and yes, that has been my experience. So
that just makes no sense.
I know. I was really, really surprised by it. So when I saw that, I thought, right, I've got to try to find every Scottish slang word I can find for lying. And all I could find was a phrase that said something about your bum's oot de windy. That's and that basically means you're lying. I gather it's in English is something about your bum's out the window or something. Yeah,
or there's wind coming out of your bum. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe that's probably it. That's probably it. But yeah, so I said, you might be able to crowbar this into it. I don't know. See, here you go. I haven't had a response from that yet, though.
Or were they offended that it actually got bleeped out?
Well, yes. Well, maybe that's it. Maybe they wanted
Maybe.
DI. You're
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah.
Maybe they did.
It's not how
Maybe
we
they
do it
did.
in Scotland. We just swear. We don't put asterisks everywhere.
Yes, that's it. We're not mucking around. How's your week been, my friend?
Not too bad. Just busy with work at the moment. Deadlines looming this week and next week, and then it's going to get a little bit easier the following weeks after that. But other than that, it's just peachy. Hot, rain, storms, sunny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a bit of
Cyclones?
everything. It's almost. We got a tornado at Brisbane Airport last week, which was quite fun. But
Is that
I
right?
didn't
At
see
Brisbane
it.
Airport?
Yeah.
Wow.
Like the ones we've seen in New South Wales recently. I think we've had 2 in Queensland in the last few weeks.
Oh my god. Well, I
yeah.
mean, did it take any roofs off, or?
No, I think it was out in the paddocks of the airport. The airport's pretty large, obviously. So.
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah.
You've got paddocks at your airport.
Well, just that large land area where there's no buildings.
We were talking to Mark earlier, and he was talking about sort of what year is Queensland in now. You're telling me you still got paddocks for your airport.
I'm not going to say anything. I might incriminate myself in public. I won't do that.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny. Look, I think with no further ado, our guest is ready to go. So he is a very important person to have on the show. So therefore, we will give him the respect that he deserves. And we will go straight into Off the Grass, Gomo.
Sure. Let's just move back from there.
Hey guys, I've just reseated that.
Please, off the thing.
Sorry, mate.
All good? That's all good. Thanks.
And I will. Good evening, Mark.
Hi guys, how are you?
Very
G'day,
good.
Mark. Nice
So
to have you
much-
on the show.
Yeah, very
Thanks.
much so.
Looking forward to having a chat.
Absolutely. Well, as we were alluding to before, we've got Mark with us, and he was the instigator of the Vote Tony Out campaign in, was it 2020, Mark? Or 19? I always
2019. May
2019.
19, I think it was 2019. Yeah.
And you're now working on the McKellar Rising campaign with Dr. Sophie Scomps. Is that pronunciation
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, Sophie started with another lady called Anya Geddes, started McKellar Rising, and I've been mentoring those guys and about another 11 or 12 electorates. And a few of us in McKellar and in Warringah have been probably mentoring 30 to 35, maybe more electorates around Australia. So I think
wow.
what we did here in Warringah, I think, and I think it's down to Zali. A lot of it is her presence in Parliament, along with Helen Haynes and the other independents, Andrew Wilkie and Rebecca Sharkey, have really proven, I think, themselves literally to be the opposition in many stages of the day. And I think they're voices for their community, or voices of their community. And I think it's making a real difference, and I'm looking forward to the next election because I think it's going to be a historic event for Australia.
Kexter and I have spoken about this before, where we believe that when we've had hung parliaments, we've actually had better outcomes for most people in Australia.
I wouldn't use the word hung parliament. I'd use the word minority government. It sounds a little bit better. Hung parliament, Ned Kelly,
Yeah, true.
probably there's a better way to put it. But I agree. When we had Julia Gillard in her minority government, she got through 518 pieces of legislation. So
yeah, I think the most legislation from a government for a very long time, and definitely since now to then, definitely.
Yeah, and then New Zealand's operated in a minority government for a long time. The system of government they have basically ensures that there is other parties involved, and it's not just a sort of a lay down like it is now. And it's quite interesting. I think if you think about the Parliament of Australia right now, the way Scott Morrison and the Liberal National Party are acting, you'd think they'd have a 30-seat majority, not a 1-seat majority.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know it's so slim. It's just amazing. I mean, the only majority is the Speaker. If they lost the Speaker tomorrow, it would be, as you say, a minority government, or it would be a balanced government, as it were.
Yeah,
But
shutting him down on the whole Christian Porter thing the other day, probably he might be a little bit on the fence. But I think they're liable to lose. I think with their deal with the Nationals, that was only just. A few of them were thinking about going and sitting on the crossbench. So. It's a very dicey situation. The integrity of the Parliament of Australia right now I would say, is at an all-time low.
And do you think that's why people of Australia are disenfranchised by politics and just don't want to engage anymore?
I don't know. It's about politics. I think it's party politics. There's a differentiation between party politics and just politics in general. And for me, my big thing when I sort of woke up, or whatever that you want to term, is basically, it was Tony Abbott basically not listening to the people of Warringah who voted for 74%, the second highest electorate in Australia, to support same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
And Tony Abbott decided to leave the chamber and not represent us.
It's just disgraceful, isn't it?
But when you talk to him about that, it was more about he has this view, or he had this view. He doesn't have a view anymore. Well, he does, because he seems to be a media, can't get him out of the media. But anyway, he had this view, basically, there's two ways you can go when you're elected into Parliament. So you can either be a consultative representative, so you consult back to the electorate all the time, or you can be a representative where you think they abdicate power to you, and then you become this sort of emperor of Warringah. And he said, I choose the second one.
Right.
Oh, nice.
And I think a lot of the Liberal Party people do, because if you look at, say, Jason Falinski in McKellar, big talks up climate change, talks up integrity, talks up no lies in Parliament, and votes against all those bills in the last week.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing.
Who actually is Jason Falinski? Because I know I didn't know much about him at all until you and Sophie and the McKellar Rising campaign started to put the fear of God up him, because apparently it was 66% that he had last time when he won, and this time he's already down to 53%. So
I think what he did, he inherited 66%. So Bronwyn Bishop was the member, and this is a really interesting thing about McKellar. McKellar's been a Liberal Party safe seat for 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if 60 years, they're being taken for granted. And so when Jason was handed the baton, when Bronnie flew off in a helicopter,
That's
are
right.
we allowed to talk about the helicopter or not? Anyway,
Yeah, we are.
Absolutely. Anything you like, Mark.
When she flew off in the helicopter, basically he was handed a 66 seats, 66% vote, and then he's whittled it down to, I think, 51. He actually gained 1.5% last time, so he's at 53. But Tony was at 52. So when we started our campaign, so I think Jason is he better be packing up his office, because he's moving out the day after the next election.
So you're very confident with the McKellar Rising?
Well, I think the problem, not the problem, but the thing about McKellar is it's never been tested, and so now, the Liberal Party in, say, Pittwater has about 150 members. So if you add up all the social media, the amount of people who are on McKellar Rising's subscribe page to their website, it's about 3,000 people already. So this is actually really interesting nationwide. The Liberal Party and the National and the Labor Party apparently nationwide have about 1,500 members. 15,000 members.
I was going to say, I thought it was a bit more than 1,500.
15,000. But and unionism is at the lowest point it's ever been as far as members go. But if you think of, say, 50 community groups around Australia, and they all have between 5,000 and 7,000 people who are backing them.
Wow.
That's pretty powerful.
All of a sudden, a big bomb's dropped in the pool. Someone's just done a big bomb in the pool. And I think that's what can happen when people, the community, finally says, I've had enough, I want some change. And then they start basically peer-to-peer communication, which drives a lot of this tribe building that we're talking about in the beginning. That makes a massive difference. If you start building the tribe, and when we were doing it in Warringah, from day one, people said, who's your candidate? Who's your candidate? And we were like, we're not about a candidate. We just want to test the waters and see if there's any appetite for basically changing the system here and not having Tony as our representative. And it turns out I wasn't the only person in my street, suburb, or electorate that was thinking like that. And I think getting people around Australia to start talking about that openly with people, and that's why we started the Vote Tony Out Instagram page with Sally Steggall. I sort of copied the Humans of New York Instagram page. Have you ever seen that?
Never heard of that one. No.
Yeah.
Winter, you should have a look. It's the most beautiful thing. It's just that it's little snippets of people's lives and telling stories, and they change you. It's the most. Okay. You just build this sort of empathy with people because you understand different people's situations by their stories. Yeah. And I think by doing that, we start off with Lane Beachley, and she just told her reasons that she was supporting the campaign. And from there, it sort of helped normalise political discussion in people within Warringah. And it was just fantastic. So I think that's the big thing is, you're not supposed to talk about how much you earn, and you're not supposed to talk about politics, you're not supposed to talk about religion. Well, I think we can talk about religion because it's dying. And what you're seeing right now is the religions are seeing they're dying. So they're all getting into politics so they can continue to control the people. That's a weird thing, but I think it's interesting. And the other thing about politics is the democracy in Australia is at an all-time low with the corruption and just not corruption, but brazen corruption that's going on in Australia, and the absolute ignorance or arrogance of the party politicians, particularly the Liberal National Party right now, and not listening to their electorates, and they're just pushing stuff through. They're gagging debate in the parliament. I think it's outrageous myself.
Mark, we will definitely get on to federal ICAC because Wednesday and I are massive, obviously advocates for that, and I know that you are as well. But I just want to ask just a couple of questions. You've said quite a few times that you love the word unity in community. When did you start to get so community focused? Because I could be incorrect here, but I understand that you weren't particularly politically focused before the Vote Tony Out campaign. I mean, you knew about political systems, et cetera, but now you're very passionate about getting the right community representation for the people that deserve it, for getting things to change.
Yeah, I've always been I think it comes from my mum a little bit, but I've always been someone who wants to participate in things. So I've been involved in a lot of community organisations and supported a lot of different things where I live. I think that's one of the things that you should do. I don't have any kids. My wife and I, we don't have any kids. So, for me, I've got probably a bit more time than anyone who's got a bit of kids, who's got a bit of kids, but has got kids, whatever the expression is. I think for me, I just have to spend my time giving back a little bit. I'm really lucky. I have my own company that sort of runs around the world. I'm very fortunate to live in a great place. I'm very fortunate to be born in Australia. And so I just think, I have this just have this sort of built-in generosity that I want to spend time and help people and just try to make the world a better place. And so I think Tony Abbott finally wore me out to say, well, after 20-something years, this guy should not be here. And I just thought it's interesting because I just asked the question I sent an email. A friend of mine sent it back to me after Tony had lost the election, but I sent an email in, I think it was 2016, after the last election, and said, well, what are we going to do about Tony Abbott? And then I sort of from there the same-sex marriage bill sort of pushed me out. There was a lot of things that pushed me out there, but that one was just the thing that really tipped me over. And from there, I just started having more conversations with people. And I think the thing about changing people's minds isn't about standing on a soapbox and preaching. It's actually asking people questions and listening to their answers, and then asking them another question about why they think like that. And in Tony Abbott's case, it would take 2 or 3 questions to break it down that they didn't actually know why they were voting for him. They were just voting for him. And so when you start to point out the inadequacies of his ability to be the true representative of Warringah, it's pretty easy for people to go, really? I think I've been
Why
doing
were
the
we
wrong
voting for this guy?
I think I've been doing the wrong thing for 4, 10, 20 years. Horrible.
Yeah, it is. It is disastrous because, as you know, it makes so much difference to our lives. But, a lot of people are what they call, apolitical. And I think that basically every single day there's something going on. I mean, even in my representation,
Does the A stand for apathy?
Well, yeah, I think you may be right.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, I've never been that way. I've always sort of been passionate about wanting to try to make a change in different ways, etc. And I suppose this podcast was something that sort of came about sort of last year with Wency and I, when we were a little bit the same. We were like, we've got to say something. We've got to do something. We've got to get some messages out there as much as possible, because there's just, not enough people sort of listening to some good messages. And so we thought we'd sort of start this out and see if we can get some really interesting people on. So what I was going to say, Mark, was my local rep is Bill Shorten. And for our community and for our area, as a rule, many things that he stands for actually works for the area, because he does believe in the arts, and he does believe in climate change, etc. But I actually questioned when I was in a meeting, because I was in a Labor meeting the other week, because I just want to take part and see what's going on. And I said to him outright, I said, well, you know about your fossil fuel funding, don't you? And he said, I'll have to check that up. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. If you've seen the Craig Rucastle, will make it a big deal. I can tell you that you're getting funded. So it's really interesting what you've been saying about.
But this is the problem with the political parties, that they have donors, and they answer to also those donors, because with a very low membership, they need the money. Like the Liberal Party, I don't think they know what's coming. There is literally 30 to 50 seats around Australia that are going to be challenged by independents like never before. All those independents have been coached by Cathy McGowan and a team of other people like me and and a lot of other people. And they've been coached on how to run campaigns, how to talk to the media, how to run social media, how to do funding, how to, everything. And so the Liberal Party last time spent about $2 million trying to protect Tony Abbott. So they're not going to have any money to protect 50 seats or 30 seats around Australia. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be game on. And I know that the community organisations around Australia, they're passionate. They have connections within the community through peer-to-peer communication. A lot of this is going to fly under the radar until election day.
So with the grassroots kickoff, or how it's going to start, how do you see that happening across other electorates? Because not all electorates are like Warringah or Mackellar. You've got other ones that are totally different demographics. So how do you combat the incumbent in those places?
So it's interesting. It's say in North Sydney, Trent Zimmerman, the first openly gay politician, and he's a lovely guy. There should be no one in Australia who thinks Trent Zimmerman isn't a lovely guy, because he is. But
he seems like it.
Yeah, but is he an effective? Is he effective politician? He if you listen to what he says outside of Parliament, and then you look at how he votes, they're completely opposite things. So I would say he is, like, I think someone said he was impotent the other day, which it's sort of, it's an interesting, because he doesn't do his congruency. He doesn't do what he says he's going to do. And this is what you get in the Liberal Party, and to a certain extent the Labor Party, is you get career politicians who don't want to rock the boat, and by rocking the boat, that means their career is over. And so it's just not going to happen. And so you've got guys like Jason Flinsky, Dave Sharma, Tim Wilson, all these people who want to be ministers, you know, and they're in it for them. They're not. They're in it for the power. They're not in it for the electorate, you know. And this is the thing, I think, where the independent community-backed organisations or the community-backed candidates, where basically the organisation or the community comes together, they, you know, it's, the way independence normally works is an independent candidate will say, I want to represent McKellar or Warringah. They'll come in with their soapbox, they'll put it in a park, they'll stand up and they'll start preaching. The way it works now is you might have 6,000 people who walk in there with their soapboxes, they put it down, they build a stage, and then someone walks up from that community, stands on the stage, and everyone starts applauding and says, we endorse you. And that's exactly what happened in Warringah. When that happens around Australia, there is going to be some shudders through political party lines, because if you have 8 to 10 independents on the crossbench at the next election, every piece of legislation gets debated. There is no gagging. Basically, you know, you want a federal ICAC, you're going to get a federal ICAC. You want climate change, you're going to get climate change. Otherwise, the independents are just going to shut the parliament down, and they're not going to vote. They're going to vote against every bill. So every party will want to be basically working with the independents, like it was when Julia Gillard was in power.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
To get stuff done, and it's the best way for Australia to move forward.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I was listening to Helen Haynes the other day, and what she was saying was one of the big problems that she has being independent is that they're not, they don't agree to pairs at the moment for independents. So as you know, the Labor Party, Liberal Party can get a pair, as it were, if they can't vote. And so therefore they'll both go off and there'll be no vote. But when it comes to the independents, and apparently I think that's what happened with the Christian Porter vote the other day, at least one of the independents wasn't there or couldn't be represented for whatever reason.
Right.
So
I was just listening. I was on a meeting, a community meeting with McKellar Rising, with Helen Haynes was one of the guest speakers on a panel with Richard Dennis from the Australian Institute and Greg Mullins. And it's fascinating listening to Helen talk. Yeah. Some of it is just fills you full of joy, and some of it is just horrifying what she's been put through.
Yeah, agreed. And she's a beautiful speaker, no doubt about it. That would have been a fantastic meeting because Richard Dennis is awesome as well. So
and Greg Mullins, I tell you, that guy, he has his experience dealing with politicians from the other side when he's basically been a uniformed public servant for 30 years. In different things, and he is completely over what's going on.
Amazing.
What I want to there was something that I heard you say, that you said that many the election campaigns, and as you know, Malcolm Turnbull had to put or decided to put his own money into the party last time the election was called. I
think it was the time before last.
Yeah, correct. And he put his own money in.
He wasn't putting much in last time.
No, that's very, very true. Very, very true. But I've heard you speak that you don't need money. All you need is people, which is quite a different stance to what many people think around Australia of how much money you need. Obviously, think about Clive Palmer and how much he shuts down debate with $60 million worth of investment.
Well, for me, it's a very altruistic sort of point of view, and you probably do need money because they're going to throw a lot of money at it. But really, it's just, for me, it's about peer-to-peer communication. And if you think in your lives, both of you, the most influential people in your lives are your family and friends, and they're the ones who affect how you think, how you vote, how you act in public, whatever it is, and even how you act at home. And I think as role models in your own family, the people who affect you the most are the people around you. And so for me, each electorate is only 100,000 people. So when we did vote Tony out, I was sitting in a room with 24 people who I'd never met back in 2018. And I sort of worked out we were about 3 or 4 degrees of separation from everyone in the electorate.
3 or 4.
3 or 4
out of the 100,000.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So the way the Parliament works is basically they have boundary changes. So they're trying to keep every electorate around about 100,000 people. And so when you have an election, if you think about that, the parties really want you to think it's a presidential style election. You're voting for Albo or you're voting for Scott Morrison, but you're not. You're actually voting for a representative to represent your electorate, your 100,000 people in Parliament. And so with that in mind, if you have, say you can build up a community organisation of 4 or 5, 6,000 people, you will be probably no more than 2 degrees of separation from everyone in that electorate. And then
Which means you can reach out to more people or spread the word
very quickly. And so when a candidate comes from that community and stands up, that means everyone in the electorate can probably be no more than 3 degrees of separation from that person. And if you think of the way the world works, that's actually really, really influential.
Yeah.
As opposed
Sorry, Mark, go for it. No, go for
it. As opposed to, a party politician like Tony Abbott, who is the emperor and basically has this very small cohort and never talk to anyone else doesn't consult with the community, wasn't engaged. He would do these photo ops where he's a member of the Queenscliff Surf Club. He was a firefighter. He does all that, but not many people who are volunteers take film crews when they get to do that stuff.
No,
so
that's exactly. Yeah,
that's the thing. When people said, "What do you like?" When we asked the question, "What do you like about Tony?" They said, "Well, look, he's a great guy. Look, he does all that community service. He does the surf lifesaving. He's a firefighter. We're paying him $520,000 a year to do volunteer work. I don't think that's right."
And he only does it at election times anyway. So the rest of the time,
to be fair, he does do it. And I think he's still.
Oh, does he?
He's still doing the firefighting.
Yeah.
A bit if he's not traveling to Taiwan to tell Taiwan how the world should be run, or working for the England Trade Organisation. He's pretty busy, and COVID's shut the borders down, but he seems to be in and out of the country 50 times in the last 18 months. So that's a different topic, though.
No, it's crazy. It is a different topic, but I understand your frustration because when I found out he was in Taiwan, I was exactly the same. But less about him, more about you. The McKellar Rising campaign that's on at the moment that you're mentoring. You said before that you've got, did you just say you've got like another 30 of these campaigns that are on at the moment?
I'm mentoring about, I would say, 12 electorates. But I know other people, and I know the community independent movement, which I've been part of a little bit. They've probably got 50 electorates on the go that they're coaching people in around Australia. Nationally,
50 electorates.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Including regionals, or is it mainly in the cities?
No, everywhere. Like Indi, which is a flagship thing that's a rural. And there's lots of independent, lots of country areas. There's probably more in Victoria and New South Wales, some in South Australia. I think WA's got a few popped up, and Queensland's got a few down around Brisbane and stuff. But
and do those voices campaigns, do they actually speak together? Like not as a one, but you know what I mean?
They're not all voices of campaigns. So the voices of movement is, there's two sort of ways to go about that. So one of them, the voices of, is an entity that basically has open discussion, and they table it. They ask all the questions, kitchen table conversations. They record everything, and then they produce a report at the end.
Okay.
And that's what McKellar's done. So McKellar is separate to McKellar Rising, but so at the end of those reports, or throughout the process of doing the kitchen table conversations, people basically come up to the thing of saying, what are we doing about this? And they will say, well, we're documenting and we're producing the report. And then people say, no, but what are we actually doing about it? And so, well, the Voices of movement is this. We document the report, and people go, well, that's not enough for me. I want to do something about it. I'm actually pretty worked up now after these conversations, and so that's why you've got organisations like McKellar Rising popping up, which becomes a sort of advocate organisation for a community representative, and so I think in some ways the Voices of movement tends to be like a what's it called, a feeder system for advocate organisations.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah.
Now.
So we're in Warringah, we sort of didn't have, we had Voices of, but it was quite a small thing because at the same time we had My Vote Tony Out campaign, we had Daniel's Think Twice Warringah where he's putting the posters up, we had C19 which were doing the dinosaurs, we had the North Shore Environmental Stewards doing their thing, so we had lots of community groups. But what people didn't know, we were actually all working together in the back room.
Background. Okay.
Well, also at that vote, Tony Out, Get Up was on your side as well, because I was working for them at the time, and there was so much going into trying to get Tony out, as it were. But unfortunately, there was quite a few other things that didn't work after that. So I sort of haven't been part of it since. But it was just so good to see that happen, as it were.
Yeah, Get Up was a funny thing up here because they're very good at community organising, and I give them that. But what they're not good at is they don't tell people how to vote. So they put out these cards and say, well, if you want this, you do this. But they are great at getting people active. And so I just stood in the background of a couple of their meetings, and they're really good at. I think a lot of people want to do stuff, but they don't know how to do it. So Get Up's good, pulling those people in, probably a little bit like yourself, Keith, and saying, you can help. Here's some things you can do. You can door knock. And they give people scripts and they help people out. But at the end of the day, in Warringah, we had so much going on that we didn't really need Get Up. They in some ways they were sort of confusing the message a little bit.
Yeah.
So did you tell them to nick off?
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of conversations behind the thing, and I think when they did some things like one of the advertising they did where Tony Abbott was they had the Vote Tony Out. They had the guy, Jonas, the Tony Abbott impersonator. They had him on the beach as a lifesaver, and someone was drowning, and so they did a few ads. Remember that weren't quite good, and they got pulled, but they spent a lot of money doing that. That stuff, but it was sort of just a bit silly because when you think of all the other campaigns we had going on, all the other activations we had going on, and all the peer-to-peer conversations that we had going on,
it wasn't necessary.
It wasn't necessary, and it was just confusing the message a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like Get Up should have had a chat with what was actually going on in the electorate. They were trying to do something about it because, as you say, it sounds more of a hindrance than a help as such.
Yeah, but I think once they pick an electorate that they want to make a change in, then they're pretty all in, And we did have lots of chats with them, I was trying to talk them out of, one stage they wanted to do billboards with Vote Tony Out on them, and I was like, you don't just come up with that slogan. You've got to. Yeah. So it was interesting, but I think, if we had I think this time around they're not going to have anything to do with Warringah because they don't need to. And I personally hope they don't have anything to do with McKellar because we don't really need them up there either.
Yeah, absolutely. Wency, did you have some more? Do you want to chat to Mark about?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what's the campaign going to be like for Zali? Is it pretty much like last time, or is it pretty much low key because she's got a good stronghold there?
No, well, the interesting thing for me is that the Liberal Party want Warringah back. But, unfortunately, the Liberal Party doesn't own Warringah. I think Warringah owns the Liberal Party. And so what we're going to do is, I think Zali had, the last time I think she had 44% of the primary vote. And I'm going to work pretty hard to make sure she gets more than 51% and this thing's shut down. Hopefully, Warringah will be the first electorate called on the night of the election. And I think it's really possible. I think last time there was probably, if you look at the numbers, there was still probably about 17. I can't remember. I can look it up. I might just look it up quickly so we got the right numbers. But there was still a lot of people who voted for the Labor Party, and there was a lot of people who voted for the Greens. Not
She,
heaps.
I think she won 23 out of 37 last time, didn't she, Mark?
She won 23 out of 37 booths. But if you look at the, so Zali got 43.6% of the vote. Tony got 39% of the vote. But, Labor got
39.
Labor got 6%. The Greens got 6%. So if those people just realise that they're wasted votes, then basically if we take those 12%, we've won on the primary vote. And I think I think Zali's proved herself to be a worthy representative. And I think a lot of people, and I think the Liberal Party hasn't proved itself to be a good government. And so I think we probably steal a few of those 39% that Tony got as well. So if Zali doesn't win by, doesn't get a primary vote win this time around, I think there's something really wrong with the people of Warringah.
Well, just talking about that, Jason Falinsky, he's actually ridiculed the McKellar Rising campaign a bit this time, hasn't he?
He was an interesting cat. What he did was he sort of came out against all the community organisations, and it's a really dangerous thing to do because the community organisations are the community, and so when I think it was my favourite person, Senator Andrew Bragg, and backed up by Jason Falinsky, was talking about how these community organisations. Then they don't follow the AEC rules. They're just running roughshod over politics. But in actual fact, if you look what they are, more than ever, they know exactly what the AEC rules are, and they're all adhering to them because they know exactly what we went through in Warringah and other electorates, and they've been taught all this stuff by the Community Independence Program. So they don't really know what they're talking about, but it just shows how, I guess, scared they are of what's going to happen.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I think they are running scared. I think there's absolutely no doubt about it.
Yeah. So I think it's a really interesting point. And these guys, like Jason, like Dave, like Trent, like Katie Allen, like Tim Wilson, their careers are on the line here. There's only so many people can be sent to, South Africa as ambassador, or, Barry O'Farrell, a disgraced politician, nothing like Gladys, but a bottle of wine. It's the High Commissioner in the UK now.
Yeah.
So this is the thing: you leave the Liberal Party, but you don't leave the Liberal Party. You get a job somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, Matthias, what's the Matthias Cormann role he's got that's international? Something to do with climate change?
No, he's the head of the OECD. So, which is, it costs us $15 million for him to get the job. And I think it's interesting that since he's got the job and he's felt the influences of Europe and other places around the world, that he has changed his tune a little bit. And he's not saying what he was when he was the finance minister.
That's my
He's
point.
saying something completely different.
Correct.
It goes back to that thing of towing the line, that you've got to say what you've got to say.
And I'm sure he's got some pressure from the Liberal Party to follow their line a little bit. But the pressure to keep his job and the pressure from Europe is going to be a lot more than, the money that Australia put in there to help him get that job.
Mark, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. We have absolutely enjoyed your time and obviously been educated by it. So Wency, if you want to say anything to Mark just before he goes.
No, just big thank you for being on the show and enlightening us a lot on politics and getting together with community. We can make a difference.
We'll definitely get the show notes out for Humans of New York as well. We'll get the link out in the show notes for that one.
That's good. And then tomorrow, I'll give a little plug to what's going to happen tomorrow. So tomorrow we're launching our new campaign, which is our. Hang on, where's the camera?
Yeah, that's not bad. If you just, that's perfect. That's beautiful.
It's a campaign called Keep Tony Out, which is, don't worry, everyone. Tony Abbott is not coming back election again, but it's basically where we're talking about all the Tonys, and we're relaunching the campaign tomorrow. which will have a website. The Instagram page will be up. Twitter will be up. We've got our closed Facebook group, which we tend to use as a clubhouse for all the people who want to sort of help. But it's going to be fantastic. I'm really looking forward to it. And the whole thing is just really a public endorsement of Zali that sits outside of her campaign. And for me, the people that I've already got lined up who are doing videos and doing endorsements, you know, I don't know, it melts my heart a little bit to think that these people are not only willing to put their face to this endorsement, but they're actually really heartfelt messages. And it just shows you, you know, when you look at the Liberal Party stuff that Tony Abbott put out last time, you could just see the quality of the people that were saying the messages and the sort of scripts they were reading. It was like, hang on, someone's written this for this person. And they're pretty much, is there a person over here on the side with a little sort of gun at their head or whatever? I don't know. But this one is basically real community stuff. And it's just grassroots people, some people a little bit more well-known than others. But at the end of the day, for me, it's basically the difference between 2019 and before the election, and then now, basically people's opinion of what's happened in those 3 years. And I think it's going to be a great campaign. I'm really looking forward to it. And I think it will really help get that 51+%.
Well, good luck.
We'll definitely be pushing that on this show and then on our sites. We'll definitely make sure we get those links out for sure. And we'll still we'll talk about McKellar Rising as well, because it definitely, community activism is definitely the way to go to win the next election, i.e. for the Australian people to win the next election rather than a party, as it were. So again, just really would like to say thank you very much. I know you're a very busy man. We really appreciate your time, and it's such an important thing that you're doing, and we're behind all of those electorates, as it were. And we'll definitely talk about it more and more consistently on the show up until the election next year. And and just, well, we hope for the best, but it sounds like it's in very capable hands.
Yeah, it's under control.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Thanks
Mark.
so much. Thanks so much.
Care.
Well, that was just slightly awesome.
Yes. Oh, slightly. That was extremely awesome. Just knowing that there's communities out there who just want to make a difference, and you don't need the big money.
No, well, that's right. As Mark said, you need people, and that's crazy that there's 100,000 in an electorate, and in the way that they're doing their community activism and creating the groups, etc. It's only a couple of degrees between one person and another. That makes the difference for who you're going to get in from a representation point of view that you actually want, to represent your electorate. So, very, very interesting man, and obviously just really heartfelt in what he's saying about Zali's new campaign, the Keep Tony Out campaign, which I think is brilliant.
Very clever. I like it.
Yeah, laugh off the vote, Tony. This one's Keep Him Out. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
We're all for that on this show, no doubt about it. So what we will do is we will go to Beast of Blurtdom, I think, straight away. We'll definitely, obviously, have this interview up Monday, probably. The podcast always comes out on a Monday, and I'll probably slice the interview. But most of the show will be the interview anyway, so maybe I won't.
Put it up.
Just put it up, see how we go. Okay, so if you want to go first, buddy, I will find my other one.
Alrighty. All right. So, Beasts of Blurtdom. For those who haven't tuned in before, this is where we talk about weird creatures, living, extinct, mythical, whatever. All those fabulous creatures that we come to love and know or don't know. So the ones I'm going to talk about and hopefully
Usually
show
don't
you.
know.
Usually don't know exactly. Is the panda ant. So
see, there you go. Never heard of that.
Never heard of it. Exactly. So panda ant, as the name suggests, it's black and white. It's about 8 millimeters long. And I will try the panda ant, and I will try to get the picture up.
Oh, you're going to go for a bit of technology sharing here.
Yeah. Took me a little while last time, but I hope that it won't take me that long this time.
That makes two of us.
There we go. All right. Can you see that?
I cannot yet. But my giddy aunt.
So
we have, yeah. That's crazy. That is nuts.
It is, isn't it? So it does look a bit like a panda.
Yeah, but it looks like someone has sewed it together and just put some legs on it and said, "That's panda ant. I'm just going to fool people around the world." That's nuts.
Yeah, isn't it? And it's actually not an ant. It's actually a wasp.
Ugh.
So the female is wingless. So this one must be female. The male has the wings.
Oh my goodness gracious.
They have an extremely hard exoskeleton, and it's so hard that scientists, when they put the pin through insects, they find it very hard to pin
put
them
it through.
To put it through, exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
All of that just makes me go. All of that just makes me go. I just.
Well, you won't find them here. They're in Chile. They live in coastal forests. So so
up
you
your
won't
way.
find them here. Up my way. Yeah.
Nice, excellent. Are they in Australia though? Are they in Australia?
No. There's a few other colonies around South America, like Mexico and other countries, but predominantly in South America. Discovered in 1938 in Chile.
Oh my God! And do they bite?
No, they sting, just like a wasp would.
Oh, and it really hurts. Like, is it any worse than a normal wasp, or is it just as bad?
They are called the cow killer, and not because they kill cows. Because it just stings so hard that it probably could
kill a cow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. That's just coming from a tiny little insect.
I do not like the sound. Yeah, well, it is. I don't like the sound of it though. You bring really, really interesting but horrible animals onto a piece of blurt.
Maybe the next one is more up your alley.
All right. Well, hold on. Just hold your horses there for a second.
Yeah.
I'm just going to have a quick chat on this one. A $66 million. Just give me a second here. Sorry, I'm just getting a bit of stuff here that don't actually. And it's my bad. Just I'm sorry. You continue.
That's all right.
Sorry,
you sure? Shall I give you a few more seconds?
I have to, give me a few more seconds. Just talk amongst yourself, people. Okay. See if this works. Maybe not. Here we go. Okay. So 66 million-year-old Triceratops skeleton, world's biggest, goes for $7.7 million. It was million American dollars. Skeleton was known as Big John, was found in South Dakota in 2014. And this thing is pretty darn big, and I might even be able to share the movie. So bear with me, and I'll see if the technology works. Here we go. See if you can see that. Right, I'm not added to stream. Okay, I'll try that again. Here we go. Here it is.
Oh, well, yeah.
But you can't see that.
Big John.
It looks like it's got the guy from WikiLeaks hosting it.
Julian Assange.
Yeah. Where is he? He's just at the back there. I just noticed him. Where's he gone?
Rivets.
So the world's biggest Triceratops skeleton, known as Big John, was sold for $6.6 million euros on Thursday for a private collector at the Paris auction house. The enormous skeleton, estimated to be over 66 million years, was found in 2014, and the Triceratops is known for its 3 horns on its head, which I did actually know because I wanted to be a paleontologist for a very long period of time when I was younger. Yeah, I did indeed.
Wow.
And it was interesting, actually. I ran into a guy the other day, and he had a Stegosaurus fully coloured in with some forest on his calf as a tattoo.
Oh, as a tattoo, right.
As a tattoo.
I thought he just carried a picture on his calf all the time. Right, okay.
And no, on his calf. And I looked at it and I went, oh, man, that's really unique, really cool. So I sort of went up to him and I sort of said, oh, I love your Stegosaurus on your leg. That's really cool. Are you like really into dinosaurs? No, mate, just thought it was cool. And I was devastated. I was devastated. It's got to be said I was devastated. The skeleton is 7.15 meters long, which is 23 feet, but we're in America, so I'm not going to say that. Not in America, sorry. And stands 2.7 meters high and 8 feet at the hips. The skull represents more than 1/3 of its total length, with 2 large horns over 1.1 meter long. She is a mofo. Oh, I say she. Could be he. Not sure. Don't know. So it's a record for Europe, apparently. The auctioneer Alexandre Giquello said. So, his skeleton is more than 60% complete, and its skull more than 75% complete, making it unique. So, that's pretty amazing.
Almost intact, isn't it?
Which is nuts when it's 66 million years old.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Wow. Huge.
I've got.
Imagine having that in your rumpus room.
Oh well, if I had a rumpus room big enough, it would be good. Somewhere to climb, be excellent.
Yeah, exactly. Put a slide on it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Put a slide on it. Just a cool 6.6 million.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. What do you got, Wency?
My last one is
Wrap
in between the ant. Yep, between the ant and the dinosaur.
Nice.
My one is the Japanese spider crab.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's believed they can live up to about 100 years old. It's the largest living arthropod. The Japanese name is Takaashigani, which translates to tall legs crab. The shell is about 40 centimeters long.
Wow.
But its feet, the span of its feet is about 4.5 meters, and they weigh about 16 to 20 kilos.
Do we have a picture?
We do. Right here. Let's get that screen sharing again. That one. So can you see that?
Oh my giddy aunt. Yes, I can see that.
And then
there's
a bloke holding it.
God, they look
just massive, isn't it?
Scary.
Yeah.
Imagine
how many people that will feed.
Yeah, I was thinking that. That's what I was thinking. Imagine having that on your table and someone says, do you want to crack the legs?
I think it'll crack me.
I mean, that really, honestly, that gives another meaning to the word, do you want crab for dinner? That's just crazy.
Yeah.
If you're an army, maybe, but
yeah.
Oh, they do look scary. They
do, don't they?
And where was that? Sorry? Well, Japanese crab, obviously.
Japanese. So they're found on the Pacific side of Japan at a depth of about 150 to 300 meters. So probably not far from
150 to 300 meters.
Meters at depth, yeah.
Wow.
So it's probably not too far from the coast, but probably a few kilometers from the coast. Yeah. So imagine scuba diving and then you come across that. And
it's exactly 100% what I was thinking. That was 100% what I was thinking.
Freaky.
So, very freaky. Very freaky indeed.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
No, that absolutely is interesting, and we will have that that link for the spider crab in the show notes. We'll have the link for the Triceratops. We'll have the link for all of nearly everything that Mark spoke about. We'll definitely have that in all the show notes. And in weeks to come, we will have another fantastic guest. His name is Dr. David Smith. He is from the PEP podcast, and he'll be on our November 16th episode. So hopefully we will have some good people listen to that one with us. I've had that confirmed just recently and very excited about that one. So
Excellent.
It is a good night from me tonight.
And it's also a good night for me.
Thank you, Etsy.
It's been a pleasure.
See you next week.
Adios.
See you, blessers. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us. Podcast out on Monday.